The Call of the Shadows. I lived in a crumbling apartment on the fourth floor of an old, creaky building in the city. The place had always felt off, like it was alive and watching me. But lately it had gotten worse. At night, the walls seemed to breathe. Soft, rhythmic whispers that weren't quite audible but felt like they were crawling into my mind. And then there were the footsteps. Always the footsteps, slow, deliberate, and always stopping right outside my door. That night, the rain was relentless, hammering against the windows like fists trying to break through. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard it again. The footsteps. They were heavier this time, like someone was dragging something behind them. My heart thudded in my chest as the sound grew louder, closer. Then it stopped. Right outside my door. I froze. The doorknob began to turn, slowly, deliberately. It rattled as if whatever was on the other side was testing the lock. I could hear breathing, shallow, wet, and ragged. My own breath caught in my throat as the door creaked open, just a crack. A cold draft swept in, carrying the smell of damp earth and decay. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it would go away. When I finally opened them, the door was closed and the hallway was silent. The next morning, I told myself it was just my imagination. But deep down, I knew better. The apartment was changing. The air felt heavier, the shadows darker. I'd catch glimpses of movement in the corners of my eyes, figures darting just out of sight. The bathroom mirror would fog up, and when it cleared, there'd be handprints on the glass. Small, child-sized handprints. One night, I woke up to the sound of scratching. It was coming from under my bed. I lay there, paralyzed, as the scratching grew louder, more frantic. Then it stopped. Something grabbed my ankle. I screamed and yanked my leg free, scrambling out of bed. I turned on the lights, but there was nothing there, just the faint smell of mildew and the sound of my own panicked breathing. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the basement. The stairs groaned under my weight, and the air grew colder with each step. The basement was a maze of old furniture, boxes, and cobwebs. My flashlight flickered as I moved deeper inside. That's when I saw them, the photographs. Dozens of them nailed to the walls. Families, couples, children, all of them former residents of the building, and all of them with their faces scratched out. In the center was a larger photo of a family, a man, a woman, and a little girl. Their faces were gone, but the scratches looked fresh, as if they'd been made just moments ago. A cold breath brushed the back of my neck. I spun around, but no one was there. The flashlight flickered again, and in the brief moment of darkness, I heard a whisper. "You're next." I bolted out of the basement and didn't stop running until I was back in my apartment. I packed a bag, got in my car, and drove. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to get away. But it wasn't just fear that drove me. Earlier that day, I'd found an old letter tucked under my door. It was written in shaky handwriting, the ink faded and smudged. It read, "If you want to live, go to the forest. Find the cabin. They can't follow you there, not yet." There was no signature, no explanation. Just those words. At first, I thought it was a prank, but after what happened in the basement, I couldn't ignore it. The forest was my only hope. Hours later, I found myself deep in the woods. The trees loomed overhead, their branches clawing at the sky. I stumbled upon an old cabin, its windows dark and its door slightly ajar. Desperate for shelter, I went inside. The cabin was cold and smelled of rot. I started a fire in the fireplace, but the flames cast strange, writhing shadows on the walls. They didn't move like normal shadows. They twisted and stretched, forming shapes that looked almost human. I sat down, trying to calm my nerves, when I heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping on the window. I turned slowly, my heart in my throat. There, pressed against the glass, was a face. Pale, with sunken eyes and a wide, grotesque smile. It was the little girl from the photograph. I screamed and backed away, but the door slammed shut behind me. The fire went out, plunging the cabin into darkness. I fumbled for my flashlight, but when I turned it on, I wasn't alone. They were there, the family from the photograph. Their faces were still scratched out, but I could feel their eyes on me. The little girl stepped forward, her head tilting unnaturally to one side. "You shouldn't have run," she said, her voice a guttural whisper. "We've been waiting for you." I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The shadows closed in, and the last thing I saw was their hollow, faceless forms reaching for me. The forest wasn't an escape. It was a trap. And now, there's no way out.